your family was impacted by suicide in
Yeah.
in some way, and I know it's really important to kind of tell those stories so that people uh, learn to appreciate from another person's experiences so they can grow and heal. And I know that's kind of been my journey ever since I started the Question Guy podcast and connecting with people, throughout the pandemic and then after the pandemic. Uh, Listening to people's stories has been very therapeutic for me. And I've attempted suicide twice in the past 10 years. And so let's dive into that situation from your perspective and your family's perspective. What happened?
Sure. So let me tell my grandfather's story in a nutshell. Obviously, that would be a very long conversation, but I tried to like squeeze it in. So he fought in World War II, and obviously Hungary was on the wrong side, as we always do. And so we lost. And my granddad was a tank driver during the war, and then we lost the war. And there was a lot of I still surprised and just shocked as how he could survive the whole terrible things that happened during that war. And he walked back on foot from Russia to Hungary. It took him, I don't know, a month until he got back. And he was like very sick and very thin, and obviously PTSD, and nobody knew what it was back then. He met his brother and father. They both survived the war. They were in different parts of Russia. They both survived, and he just got the news that his mother died of cancer during the war.
Wow.
So it's like his life was in pieces, and so it was like a horrible state and trauma. What happened to him? Then life happened. He fell in love with a woman who was a widow and who was from a small town. And surprise, she was my grandmother. She already had 3 kids, like very small kids, and she lost her husband during the war, and so they fell in love. He followed him to this small town where I grew up. That's my hometown. And so my granddad, basically, he was from the capital. He was from Budapest. He was well educated. He was like artistic type. He was a writer, artist. He loved taking photographs like me. And he never really fitted into that community where he ended up, because there was like a huge difference back then between Budapest, the capital, and the countryside. So they never really accepted him. Plus, they lived together with their in-laws, and that caused so many problems between my grandmother and him. Although he raised my grandmother's kids from her first marriage as his own, but it just life just wasn't right for him there, and he started to drink, and then just things went downhill from there. And my mom was about 10, 11 years old when he committed suicide. And my mom found him and basically saved his life. I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing that he survived, because obviously he wanted to take his own life because things were really bad for him. And I didn't know about this story until I grew up, and my granddad passed away when I was about 7 years old. So now thinking back to his story, I have such a huge respect for him, and he was so brave going through all that stuff without a mentor, without a therapist, without a coach. They didn't have those people around them at that time. But I think he always loved writing, reading, journaling, and I think that helped him to get through his darkest hours. And obviously, after he tried to commit suicide, he still continued drinking and everything. So that was present in his life. But yeah, that was his story. And thanks to my mom, I know this story. So it was very important to remember that, and how it didn't affect me obviously directly, because I'm just his granddaughter. But yeah, we can just see these skeletons in everybody's lives and find out what happened to those people around us in our closest vicinity. Yeah.
Does your mom ever talk about it?
Yeah, with me,
Yeah.
a couple of times. I mean, we are close, so she shared these stories, and yeah, I think it was important to tell me that. to
Did it
share that
scare her?
information.
Like when she found,
Yes, I mean, she was a little girl. Obviously, it
yeah,
scared her. It was, I think it was very traumatic for her. She never talked about how traumatic it was, but I suppose it was. I mean, when you see your own dad, just in the middle of taking his own life.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I appreciate your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.